Good morning. This is a quick demo of some work I'm in the middle of to kind of clean up some difficult uh, settings decisions that we've made over the years. The basic problem is, as a user, you can set the API route to Pulp, and then we create some global settings that can be really difficult to keep straight. You can see for the current state of our settings.py file. API route is what the user can actually set, and are we going to rewrite the header is another thing the user can actually set. And the rest of this is manipulation of those two and creation of a bunch of very, very specific settings files. As you can see, they've got things like, well, we assume that it's always going to be v3, and we've got a special one for domains and a special one for domains that doesn't have a front slash, and it's really difficult to keep these straight. Also, this makes it really impossible for us to not be using v3 because the proliferation of settings just ends up magnifying all of the code. So what the thing that I'm attempting to do here is provide a single way for all of the code that needs these special ways of building URLs to do them in one central place instead of depending on independent settings and in ways that plugins can use as well. So here's some of the complications. API route can be replaced. The path beyond the API route is impacted by domain or no domain. We have v3 hard coded. And one of the problems is a lot of places that these are used, those settings were used and assigned to local global variables that had different and confusing names. The code was really easy to get wrong when trying to update. So um, what I've done is created a method that can be used by plugins, and it's available from pulpcore.plugins as well. Um, the method can be used whether Pulp is completely up or not. That's why it's not in the utils file or in util. And everywhere that currently uses one of uh, the v3 labeled settings in Pulp core file insert guard has now been updated to use this. I've also done an experiment with Pulp RPM. Once this merges, I'll just merge that as well so that Pulp RPM will also be independent. And then we can go through all the plugins and update them as well. All right, so here's a basic description of the application method itself, find API route. You can tell it what version you're building URLs for. It just assumes v3 because that's makes it like it does today. You can tell it whether you want it to respect domains or not, because there are places where we don't. You can tell it if you do respect domains, what domain you want it to use. Currently, it doesn't default to anything. Some places absolutely want to have the word, the string default here. You can tell it whether you want it to strip leading slashes or not, because that's a thing that gets used a lot in various places in Pulp core. And you can tell it whether you want it to listen to the rewrite header setting, because there are some places that don't. So this is a bunch of parameters that are here to map the way that we use those settings today. And they're all described here. And what it returns is a tuple. What the possibly rewritten API route is, because some places use that. And then what I'm calling the path, which is everything down to version, which is used in other places. May or may not have domain in there, may or may not have the rewrite header. If this sounds complicated, it's only because our use of URL building is complicated. We probably do want to clean that up at some point, but the first step is make it possible to clean that up in one place. All right, so for the demo, what I'm going to do, I am currently, as you can see down here, I've hopped into my development environment. I am running Pulp Core Manager in the shell. I have imported the find API route call. And the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm just going to run it with no arguments. So we're just going to take the basic parameters. And what it returns is a tuple. Now, this Pulp instance is running with API rewrite turned on. So we get, hey, here's the slug that you're going to have to rewrite whenever you're rewriting the requests. And domains are turned on. And so it says, well, when you need to insert a domain, this is where you're going to insert it. So that's the basic. I'm paying attention to what Pulp is doing, and I'm just going to build you the base URLs. Now let's tell it, hey, I don't want you to pay attention to the rewrite header. So now you can see, you just get what the API root actually is here and here, but we leave the domain. Okay, how about I don't pay attention to the domain because I'm building a domainless URL. There's your domainless URL and ignoring the rewrite header. I like domains, but I need it to be default because I'm building a URL that knows it's going just to the default domain. Now you've got a default domain URL. Next one, this gets used a lot in our code. I am building a URL and I want you to strip the leading slash. Why? Because I'm going to be building more path stuff with that and I'm going to be appending things. Now you'll note neither of these have a leading slash. Also, this code doesn't invent the need for these. It simply captures the needs that we have in one place. And then lastly, let's just reset all the variables, take none of the defaults, because I am now building for version 4 of the API. And now you get the path with version 4 in it. So all the places in Pulp core that used to use, go back to the top here, that used to use any of these v3 underscore API related settings, now call into find API URL, find API root rather. I have one bug left in the pull request that I have to fix. You can see the pull request here, 7556 in core, shortly, and feel free to throw bricks and make comments. And then this will be merged. The existing settings will remain because the plugins are all going to want to update, but I'm not going to force them to update. We probably want to do that before 115, just to make it the code ready for the v4 work that we're also doing. And that is my demo. Any questions, folks? Go ahead, Jared.
For the v4 work, we're still going to allow setting the no domain on the URLs, right? There's still going to be some URLs that don't have a domain.
I believe the answer to that is yes. Things like docs and status, maybe. I'm going to have to dig into that further. We'll know more shortly as we really start hammering on that. Other questions? Okay, Andrew, can we stop the recording, please?